All right, Kim, this is a really fun project. So, talking about kids having to be home and doing all their remote learning and the stress of that, but the stress also of keeping up the house and being a mom, and that you're involving all of the kids now, or maybe you aren't, but you're pretending that this is this like home economics. Like, this can be another class they can be learning on how to do the things that they'll need to know how to do as adults. So, folding clothes or vacuuming or throwing out the diapers. Like, this is all so fun that they're playing all of these roles. And valuable, right? If they're actually learning these things, they're such valuable skills. I don't know if you have in any of your classes Tiffany Villasenor, but she did a project about remote learning, so it'd be fun for you guys to share your projects with one another. Very different, but also obviously including kids. So let's start off by taking a look at these technically. So I'm first going to just click through your ISO, and you keep it at 250, raise it up to 800 for that image. So 3 of them have ISO 800, but otherwise you're keeping it low at 250. Your aperture stays pretty open at between 4 and 5. Let's look at your lens here. It says it can open as much as 3.5, so I would probably open it up for more of these images, because we do have this issue in many of the images of movement. So this happens often when you're photographing kids, is they're just going to move a little bit. So here we can see she's almost totally sharp, but then there's a movement in her skirt, which is fine. That doesn't bother anything, but a little bit too much movement in her face there. Here it looks like there's just a little bit of camera shake happening, or a little bit of movement happening as we're looking in his eyes. They're not quite sharp. This image is sharp. This image, there's movement throughout. This image is sharp. This image, there's not a point of focus. I think that there's just too much camera shake happening here. Actually, there's a little focus back here, so maybe there's some movement happening with your son, and you're having a shallower depth of field. That image is sharp. That's pretty sharp. So you're dealing with some motion. Sometimes it looks like it's maybe camera shake. Sometimes it's just your kids moving a little bit. Here, I think it's just your daughter moving a little bit. And a lot of these images are underexposed, and that's just photographing indoors without a lot of light. So some of them have great and dramatic lighting, like this image does, and this image does, and this image even does. But other images are dark or underexposed, like this image and this image. And this image too. You could bring more light in or open up more windows to get a better exposure. The images are full of color, and I think that's a really fun point. As I look at series like this, I'm often like brought into one color, and it helps move me through your images, and it can help to focus the images. So for instance, her wearing the yellow gloves, goggles, and cleaner, the orange juice, the wrench or pliers that you have there. All of those can kind of move us through the images and give us points that are very important to the narrative that you're sharing here. We can see that a bit with the red, like the red lights back here, the red bow tie, the red in the laundry around her, the carpet, but that doesn't lead us to as many important aspects as the yellow does. So just something for you to think about, how color can move us through your images. Your composition is pretty varied here. As far as here, you're up above looking down at your daughter. There's a few here that are pretty straight on, but here you're getting on level with your son on the ground. Here you have more of a bird's eye view as you're looking down at your daughter as she's sitting on this pile of laundry. Here you're on level with your kid as he's looking at the ham, and here again on level. So you're changing your point of view a lot. And if you weren't doing that, this could get really boring, right? If we just had like all of the images were like these 3 where you're just in the same spot, that would feel very repetitive. But you take a lot of different angles of view, which makes much more interesting images. So your series has like what you're really, really excelling in with this series is your concept and how you're executing your concept. That these are all fun and playful and also very timely and relevant. So your concept is your strongest point in this series. The way that you've set up these images and compose these images is also very strong. Like you've gone one step too far with everything. With the gloves and the brush, that makes sense. But the goggles, that's one step too far and makes it so much more fun. And the newspaper and the juice, that's normal. That looks good. But then the coffee and the pills and the bow tie, one step too far, right? And I think that one step too far is what makes this such an enjoyable series to look at. But there are some technical things. Your images not being in complete focus and being underexposed that aren't normally an issue for you, but are coming up in this series. So that's something for you to be really careful of moving forward. It looks like you have a lot of different images, so I can tell you've spent a lot of time on this. I can tell just by looking at that these were shot over a couple of days and different times during those days that you spent a lot of time on this. Yeah, just you're being playful. You're moving around and trying to get the best shot for all of these, and that really paid off in this series.